Welcome. I'm Jessica Tietjen, and this is the Evolving to Exceptional podcast, where we talk about reaching peak performance in our workplaces, homes, and communities so that we can live our best life possible, an exceptional life. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Evolving to Exceptional podcast. This week, I want to talk about a challenge that I'm seeing happen, and I'm seeing it come up more and more with all of my clients. And it's this idea of what I'm calling or terming the capacity collapse. And I want to address why organizations really need to rethink how they support their people. Maybe you've heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. This well-known saying is highlighting the idea that you must take care of yourself before you can give to others. But what happens when everyone's cup is empty? What happens when everyone becomes so depleted that they have no more to give? In today's workplaces, many leaders are asking, why does everything feel so hard? Why aren't people bouncing back the way they used to? Why are even top performers withdrawing, burning out, or disengaging? It's not just workload. It's not just change fatigue. It's not just poor communication. It's a collective capacity collapse. What exactly is capacity collapse? Capacity is the difference between what we are currently being, thinking, feeling, or behaving, and what is currently possible for us to be being, thinking, feeling, and behaving. Capacity is what we have left to still give, use, or apply in our work and lives. Ever seen the big jar demonstration where you must fit all of the rocks, pebbles, sand, and water, each representing different aspects of your life, into one jar? The rocks represent the most important parts of your life, your family, your career, your faith. The pebbles are big projects or activities, sports practice, home renovation, work projects. The sand is basic survival, eating, sleeping, etc. And the water is the stress caused by everything in our lives. The purpose of the activity is to demonstrate the importance of how we structure and prioritize our lives most efficiently and effectively to fit all of these things into your life, your jar. When we do it optimally, the big rocks go in first, then pebbles, then sand, and finally the water. The message being we can fit more in our jar when we put things into it in the most efficient and effective order. But believe me when I tell you, no matter how you rearrange the jar, if there is too much water being stress, it will always overflow. When our lives are full and especially filled with too much stress, we run out of capacity. When our jar overflows with stress, ultimately we end up in burnout or capacity collapse. Our lives have become too complex and stressful for our bodies to adequately adapt to their environment. As a result, the world we've created for ourselves asks more of us as humans than we currently have the capacity to deliver. In other words, to thrive in today's world, we need a bigger jar. In the past, top performance was a function of capabilities and competence. Today, it's a function of something far more fragile: capacity. Across organizations everywhere, we're seeing a silent pattern: exhausted leaders trying to motivate exhausted teams inside exhausted systems. Everyone cares, everyone is trying, but trying harder isn't working anymore. Because the problem isn't effort, it's capacity. We're living through a capacity collapse, and many organizations are pretending they can out-strategize it with outdated approaches that just don't work in today's world. And this assumes they're even willing to acknowledge its existence at all. Many organizations are too busy pointing fingers at whose fault it is that they ended up here to recognize they are in a capacity collapse. Ironically, this is also a surefire sign that they're in fact experiencing it. The invisible crisis inside today's workplaces. If you ask any leader privately, they'll admit their teams feel different, heavier, more fragile. Motivation falters. Conflict occurs more quickly and more often. Their most talented people are disengaging or quietly quitting. Resilience isn't consistent. It's a daily challenge. This isn't about a soft skills gap or a need for another motivational program. It's about a fundamental human truth. You cannot expect sustainable performance from people operating on empty. Today's workforce isn't just stressed, they are depleted, dysregulated, disconnected, and disillusioned. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't innovate with exhausted minds. You can't create connection and loyalty in survival. Yet the demands keep rising. Shorter deadlines, constant change, increasing complexity, while the human capacity to absorb, adapt, and accomplish continues to shrink. I'm not speaking in hypotheticals here. I'm speaking directly based on my own experience and that of my clients and the extensive research that supports this phenomenon. It's not addressing what is going to or about to happen in the future. This is happening right now. The real question is, are you conscious and aware of it or not? Which brings me to the first challenge. Before we can even consider addressing and responding to the capacity collapse, we have to be willing to become aware of and conscious of its existence. We can't bury our head in the sand and hope what's worked in the past will work in today's world. We have to see the system that's failing us. Recognizing the capacity collapse is difficult because we're stuck in systems and past patterns that perpetuate practices that keep us repeating these cycles. For example, we normalize overfunctioning, especially leaders and parents. Workplace cultures reward output, not effort or results. Survival states like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn look like effort. The collapse is so gradual, it's undetectable, and then suddenly it's severe. We're used to ignoring or suppressing internal signals. Most people are so busy surviving within the system that they never get a chance to see it. If we want to create meaningful change, we have to be willing to recognize the past patterns that are constraining ourselves, our teams, and our organizations from performing at their best. But identifying and acknowledging these patterns that are constraining us can feel foreign and even threatening. To admit that our ways of being might be contributing to our challenges means admitting we have to change, and our body's response is always trying to stay the same. This isn't about blame or shame. It's about expanding our perspective to see the system or water we're all swimming in. We can begin to see the system when we ask questions like, why do we reward overwork and call it dedication? Why is burnout normalized, but rest is stigmatized? Why are leaders expected to give endlessly without refueling? Why do we treat stress and breakdowns as individual weaknesses rather than predictable outcomes of pressure-filled environments? What we often find is a system built on outdated beliefs, that people are machines, not complex humans, that productivity matters more than purpose, that performance must come at the expense of well-being. These beliefs become embedded in policies, workflows, and leadership practices, not because people are evil or malicious, but because we haven't paused and questioned them. It's time for us to reimagine a superior system. The truth is, the system isn't broken. It was built this way, and it's working exactly as it was designed, to extract performance, not to cultivate capacity. To truly evolve, we need to see how our systems, our ways of working, are impacting people today. Only then can we understand why capacity collapse is occurring and implement solutions that actually address the issue. We need to replace fear-based motivation with clarity, purpose, and safety. We need to build workplaces that regulate nervous systems, not just measure outputs. We need to redefine success to include sustainability, connection, and growth, not just speed or scale. When we acknowledge the cracks in our system, we reclaim our power and opportunity to reimagine and redesign it from the inside out. Take a minute and reflect on these following questions. What signals, emotional, physical, relational, cognitive, might be telling me I'm in a capacity collapse? What am I ignoring, suppressing, or avoiding? Where is my team or organization? Where in my team or organization do I see signs of systemic exhaustion and capacity collapse? Who is withdrawing, shutting down, or over-functioning? What would need to change to prioritize capacity building, not just output? What structures, habits, policies, or practices would need to shift? How would you need to change your ways of executing, decision-making, problem-solving, or relationship building? In conclusion, capacity collapse isn't a future problem. It's a present reality. Our people aren't underperforming. They're overwhelmed. It's time we stop blaming individuals and start seeing the system. To lead wisely in today's world, we must shift from stress and survival to regulation and resilience, creating cultures that not only restore capacity, but expand it in order to support sustainable performance. The question is no longer how do we get more from our people, but how do we give them more of what they need to thrive? The evolution starts with awareness and the courage to build something better. Now that you're aware, are you ready to learn how to get started? If so, stay tuned. This is the first in a series on this topic in particular. I want to leave you with the question that I just posed. How do we get more from our people? The question is no longer how do we get more from our people, but how do we give them more of what they need to thrive? In order to do this, we have to understand what it is human beings and the human body needs in order to operate at its best. And in most cases, the practices that we've put into our systems, our ways of working, the way that we make decisions, the way that we build relationships, the way that we execute and accomplish our work outcomes, are in direct contradiction to how the human body operates at its best. So what does this require? Well, it's going to require upgrading our systems and looking at our systems through a new lens. We're going to need to transform and make changes to our current ways of working, particularly as it relates to our people-related practices, such that we can execute them in a way that produces more positive people and performance outcomes. If you're interested in learning more about how to do this and engaging in some of these practices or upgrading some of your systems, we can help. That's what we do. That's what we specialize in. That's why I'm here talking about this topic, is so that we can start to change the systems that we're living in that are creating this collapse, that are creating these negative experiences and negative results and outcomes that we're seeing in the world today. So I encourage you, I invite you, I look forward to connecting with you. Go to our website, check out our free resources library, learn more about what we do, and reach out to see how you might upgrade your system. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, I want to remind you to keep evolving, keep growing, keep rewiring those neural pathways so that you can live your best life, an exceptional life.